We're here today to commemorate. It's not just, I think to reflect is the right word my colleague has used on our 50-year membership of the EU Union. And it's also 73 years since the Schuman Declaration. And it might be worth looking at what that Schuman Declaration said. The solidarity in production between the steel and the coal between the two countries, France and Germany, will make it plain that any war between France and Germany becomes not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. And any rational person has to support that. But what went on, it does go on to say is that with increased resources, Europe will be able, this is 73 years ago, will be able to pursue the achievement of one of its essential tasks, namely the development of the African continent. The development, I would say, the exploitation of it at that stage was all of the countries were still colonized, or most of them, and what EU wanted to do was to develop it for their benefit. And I mention that because that narrative of us and them has continued unabated, and I find it very, very worrying. Migrants have been left to drown in the Mediterranean, and time prevents me from going through the figures. I've done them before for the record. They're absolutely frightening, the amount of people that have drowned in the Mediterranean. I don't think in all humanity that I could see myself swim in the Mediterranean. It's just not possible when we consider what we've allowed happen. We've done deals with Turkey and Libya, and we've exported our responsibility. The EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, and again I've quoted him ad nauseum because it's absolutely unbelievable what he said, continuing on with the narrative of us and them. And remember that, Minister, he said Europe is a garden and most of the rest of the world is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And then parallel with all of that, we have a constant increase in the spending on arms. I have all the figures here, Ciancorla. Haven't time to read them out in 1 minute, 10 seconds. I fully support what's been said already by various colleagues on the left in relation to what has become a military-industrial complex. And the figures are absolutely frightening. And like my colleague here, Thomas Pringle, has referred to what the Taoiseach said this morning, and he told us Europe is at war. I didn't realise Europe was at war. I thought Russia had illegally invaded the Ukraine. Absolutely wrong and unacceptable. But Europe isn't at war. And that's a frightening statement. I find his speech frightening, 12 pages, and about into page 7 or 8, he starts to condemn anybody that might have an alternative view and wants a consensus mentality. I am petrified of a consensus mentality. I am petrified that that's what's prevailing, and we've learned nothing if that's what we now want. And we condemn anybody that, if you describe them as on the left, that they're raving mad in relation to not being able to see the picture. Minister, I wish I had more time to explore this, because I certainly find the 12 pages of the Taoiseach's speech and his comment this morning utterly worrying and frightening, and it is time for our voices to be heard, for the neutral country that we are, in a positive way to promote peace on the planet, not us and them, not our rules versus their rules, but realising that we need transformative change. Not one single page of his speech was dedicated to the transformational change that we need as a result of climate change and having learned from world wars.